give it to you? Huh? Yeah, sure, Joel. Go ahead. Take my card. Take all my food, too, while you're at it.
By the looks of it, you could lose some of that food.
You listen to me, you little shit.
No, fuck you! You handcuffed me!
I need you to shut up. All right?
Whatever favors you think I owe you ain't worth that much.
Actually, Bill, they are.
Well, it don't matter, because I don't have a car that works.
But there is one in this town.
Parts. There are parts in this town.
Meaning that you could fix one up.
All right. If I'm gonna do this, there's some gear I'm gonna need.
All right.
It's on the other side of town. Now you help me go gather it, and maybe I can put something together that runs. But after this, I owe you nothing.
That's fine. A couple days from now, we'll probably be dead anyway.
Good. Follow me. Whole goddamn town's booby trapped. Best stay right on my ass.
Can't miss it.
Right. So I think that's a really kind of like good example of what kind of like character building they do in this game. And I mean, right away, like you get a really good idea of like who all of these characters are, like just based on that little bit there. And like Bill is kind of like this horrible asshole in a lot of ways. Like he's got no patience for anybody else. He's obsessive. He's a perfectionist. You know, he's a loner who's kind of set up shop in this town, and you know, all he does is just complain about like stuff. Like everything has to be his exact way, or it's not acceptable. Like he's, you know, this is a guy who never takes it easy, and he's almost impossible to live with. And he really doesn't come across as very sympathetic. And there's you kind of get the idea that okay, like this guy's very competent. He's got this survivalist attitude that you know is serving him very well, obviously. But at the same time, like he also comes across as this just like an unbearable guy. Like you would never want to do anything with him if you had a choice, you know.
Right.
And that's something that could very easily be a kind of like a throwaway thing where it just kind of, you know, we'll just make this guy an asshole. So, you know, like we have like a certain dynamic happening here, and it's more interesting when there's like tension. And, you know, like, there's nothing wrong with that, but they go a lot further with that, like because they also use that to kind of build up Ellie in a lot of ways. Right. You know, like there's that whole thing where, you know, they get a favor from this guy, and this like punk teenager just will not shut up. Yeah. And it's just like everything more complicated than it needs to be. And you know, like telling her to shut up just makes it worse in a lot of ways. Like she's not gonna just like take that line down. So I think that's an interesting dynamic. And now kind of just like looking at this stuff, you know, like the actual gameplay here, you can see how big a deal. I mean, this kind of like cut footage, like there's action sequences in between, and they kind of cut in between those in this video, but. You can tell just like how big a deal this character development stuff is for Naughty Dog. Like there's a lot of sequence where you are just kind of walking around and doing stuff, and then you get stuff like you know, there's like a trap zombie, and Bill, you know, chops its head off, and that's presented as kind of like an everyday thing, and that also turns into a character thing where for Bill, like that's not, you know, even worth mentioning really. He just kind of does it because that's what he does. But like just, you know, if you kind of take a step back from the storytelling and think about this in terms of just like production, like that's a lot of environment that somebody has to build where nothing happens except people walk around and talk. And I think that's the kind of thing that quite often is hard to justify, you know, to a producer. And it says a lot about Naughty Dog that they're confident in their own storytelling, that they're willing to build those scenes in and just like make them happen, even though, you know, on paper, it may not make that much sense for those things to happen. It's something that is a vital part of the overall experience. And then you get these action scenes that are also, you know, relevant to the overall story, because you kind of want it to seem like a very, you know, difficult journey. You want it to be scary and dangerous, but it just like takes a lot of work to make something like this work properly. And I think it's also something that people don't generally understand, just like how hard it is to sell scenes like this, both internally and also to your publisher. Because especially in like prototype phase when at some point presumably I don't presume to know exactly how they do their scenes
Right.
but at some point this was like white box, so there was none of the detail, none of the actual atmosphere. Like it was just you could kind of see, oh, there's stairs here, or here's a doorway. And at that point when you do a scene like this, you don't really have anything there. Like maybe there's some crappy temp dialogue or something like that, but you really can't see how the scene is going to work. And the temptation is very, very big to actually just like get rid of it, because it doesn't seem like it's dynamic or interesting enough, because those things don't really come until you have all the polish in place, when you have all the unique animations, all of that stuff. And that's a kind of a huge deal, like that Naughty Dog is so willing to always
Right.
kind of like go the extra mile on something like this. And I think that's really remarkable. And there's not a lot of studios that can kind of do something like this as consistently as they are. Like they really are kind of the best in the business as far as this goes.
Right.
And like it's really impressive storytelling.
They do a lot of environmental storytelling too, right? I mean, like each of these buildings that they go into, it's not just, well, most of them aren't generic buildings. Like there are items that you pick up that are unique to these places, right? That tell you the story of what happened to the people there.
Yes, and also like they really pay a lot of attention to lighting and whatnot, especially in these cinematics, of course, which do tend to look better than the actual game, which is almost always the case, because you have like way more control environment. You know exactly where the cameras are going to be and all that stuff, so you can really make something look good. but there's also like they spend a lot of time on just like doing character stuff. Like these aren't like the kind of cinematics where somebody's like smashing through walls or jumping out of windows or something. Like it's just like people sitting down and talking. And here actually Bill is talking about how he had a partner, he had somebody he had to look after, and that his opinion is that that's just a bad idea. Like he's essentially telling Joel to not get attached to Ellie, and of course Joel is already doing that like this kind of early in
Too late.
but yeah, like that's kind of the whole thing. And that actually kind of leads us to our next video. If you want to pause this one and jump to the next one.
I'm just going to get rid of this one and we'll go to this one.
Yeah, so let me set this up just a little bit before we watch this.
Okay.
So this is kind of a little bit later, I guess like 45 minutes later in terms of gameplay, something like that, I guess, where we find Bill's partner, and this person that he'd been kind of like running with around this area, and we see how that actually turned out. And this is kind of where they really subvert Bill's character as this like this survivalist dude who doesn't give a shit about anybody, and all of a sudden like he goes from an asshole to a wholly tragic figure in a way that for me was, I mean, this whole thing is like probably one of the most touching scenes in the entire game, which is saying something.
It's illuminating.
Are you ready to go?
Let me turn up the volume a little bit so we can hear it. Okay, yeah, whenever.
Okay, so go.
Inside the house now.
So that worked out well. Okay, I'll go check out this side of the house.
Bill?
Somebody had the same idea. They stole my shit.
Well, then what the hell is plan B?
You ought to be thankful you're still drawing breath. That was plan A, B, C, all the way to fucking Z. And furthermore, tell Tess that she could take this job.
Don't you bring Tess
She
into
could
this.
shove it right
It
up
has nothing to do with... Jesus. What, you know this guy or something?
Frank.
Who the hell's Frank?
He was my partner. He's the only idiot that would wear a shirt like that. He's got bites. Here. And he...
I reckon he didn't want to turn, so he...
Yeah, guess not. Well, fuck him.
what I found. It's got some juice in it.
That's my battery. Fucking asshole. Get out. Get out.
Okay. Jeez.
Battery's drained, but cells are alive.
Meaning?
Meaning, we push it, get it started, the alternator will recharge the battery.
Is that your guess?
Look, you wanted a plan B. This is as good as it gets.
What are you thinking?
Thinking you drive and we push.
Right. So yeah, that whole thing where you find out that you know, like this guy that like Bill was talking about earlier, you know, like don't get any partners, like you know, that they're just gonna die and it's all gonna get fucked up.
Right.
You know, like it turns out that not only is this guy, and I mean they have been kind of setting this up earlier before we get this point, but he's not just, you know, Bill's partner in survival, he's also Bill's lover.
Right.
And he can't stand Bill because Bill is not somebody that can get along with anybody. Like he just, I mean,
and that's been established very clearly. I mean, they do a good job.
Exactly. Like he's too paranoid. He's too demanding. Like he's just too much of an asshole for anyone to be with,
Right.
which is, you know, it's kind of a horrible thing, but it's also very true, just like given his personality. And it's the kind of thing that especially in a world like this where, you know, like one mistake is gonna get you killed.
Right.
Like the whole idea that you know, like Bill is talking about how some asshole, you know, stole his supplies, and then it turns out that the asshole is really his lover who stole from Bill just to get away from Bill and was actually willing to risk death just so that he wouldn't have to stay with Bill. And I mean that's kind of heartbreaking in a lot of ways. And
Yeah.
I mean you like Bill doesn't, like, he's not the kind of person who actually sort of like broadcasts his pain at that moment, but you can still see it in his face, and you can hear it in his voice. And that whole thing where he, you know, like you look at him and it's kind of obvious that he probably would do anything to take back whatever it was that kind of got them to that point.
Right.
But of course you can't, which is also one of the things about like the overall things of this game is just like what's done is done. Like you can't, you don't get a second, you know, you don't get like a do-over. And and it's one of those things where also just like you know, if you look at like characters in games in general, like it's one of those things where I really like that they establish so clearly like who Bill is
Right.
before they get into his sexuality in any kind of way. Like he's not, you know, like, I mean, yeah, he's gay, but he's not.
It's,
you know,
it's incidental. I mean, it doesn't define who he is as a character. In fact, I've heard people ask Neil Druckmann about it, like, is he gay or not? It's like, okay. Apparently, they did some stuff, like there's a magazine that you can find. I mean, there's some environmental clues on top of the rest of it to tell you, but it's definitely something that they didn't want to be the primary aspect of his character, which, you know, thank God, because that's not how we're defined as human beings. So
yeah, I mean, yeah, like the thing is like he is this paranoid obsessive survivalist, and those are the things, I mean, especially in a world like this, like those are the things that really matter, like in terms of like day-to-day existence. And the fact that he is gay doesn't really enter into that, except on a purely dramatic level, of course. Like that's a different thing. And I mean, for Bill, that's obviously like an important thing, and you can kind of see that whole you know, like that pain and disappointment, and just like, it's also like one of those moments where, you know, for Bill, you know, like he just has to face up to what he is at that moment.
right, can we talk about the poignance of the line about the shirt? I mean, because there's so much depth and nuance in that. I mean, just encapsulated in that one sentence. I mean, just how unique his lover was, that Bill noticed the shirt. I mean, that it just clearly causes him so much pain, right?
Yeah, and that's also like, I think that's in terms of like pure writing, like that's a really good line, because it also it established like a certain kind of intimacy. You know, you know, like it's a kind of thing. I mean, it's not a deeply personal